Objective, Saipan in the Mariana Island Group, 1,465 miles from Tokyo. On May 21st at Hawaii, air engineers prepared for the invasion of Saipan. In many ways, this was to be the most important objective yet taken in any drive across the Pacific. Its capture would cut off the Carolines from their supply line and end Jap southward aerial traffic, would give us a firm springboard for new westward blows. Saipan would be the largest and perhaps best defended island these forces had ever assaulted. For the next few days, great quantities of vital equipment were loaded on LSTs, and by June 10th, they were lying in the Kwajalein Lagoon, awaiting formation of the convoy, while at the southern tip of Saipan, D-Day troops were this very morning swarming ashore. By June 17th, the convoy was nearing Saipan. Gunnery practice and constant watch were maintained in enemy waters near Truk and Ponape. When the convoy arrived at Saipan, it was attacked at dusk by Jap carrier planes in the initial phase of a major naval engagement. When it ended 3 days later, the Japs had lost more than 400 planes, more than a score of ships, including some of their largest and finest carriers, which were sunk or damaged. Vessels that had moved out to sea to evade possible attack now returned to unload. LCTs were launched from the decks of LSTs, vanguard of all the equipment that was to make the lower end of Saipan a secure and busy base for the final push to the north. Engineers went shoreward in Higgins boats to blast coral reefs to facilitate beaching of larger craft. And as alligators and buffaloes and power equipment headed for the beaches, the Japs, abandoned by their own defeated naval force, were burrowing into the central uplands to stand against our drive up the rest of the island. From this point on, supplies flowed ashore at the rate of 10,000 tons a day, while the Jap-held islands of Tinian, Guam, and Rota were attacked daily to prevent the Japs from using their airfields to launch planes against us. LCTs ferried heavy tanks ashore. Yellow Beach, where the engineers landed their troops and equipment, showed the results of shelling and invasion. Ashore, large stores of equipment were assembled in preparation for the reconstruction work to be done. A Sleto airfield and a secondary field at Chirankanoa had been captured on June 19th after extremely bitter fighting. Hangars were ruined, and many Jap planes had been wrecked. Other planes, still in good condition, were shipped by the Navy back to the United States. First renamed Conroy Field, Sleto was later renamed Isley Field in honor of a commander killed while leading a bombing attack against the Saipan airdrome. Ground men of a fighter group unpacked their equipment in a Jap hangar as the first P-47 came into land at Sleto, even while shells burst nearby. By the 20th, a day and a half after capture, both Sleto and Chirankanoa airstrips were in use. P-47s flew from the unimproved runway while engineers worked to put the field in shape. A ditch was dug to carry a gas line from the fuel storage tanks to the field. The fighters were equipped with rocket launchers to help rout out the Japs who were firmly entrenched in caves. By June 22nd, we held about half of Saipan's 75 square miles, including Mount Topachau, which dominates the center of the island. By June 25th, Oswego airfield had been extended 1,000 feet. Its shoulders were widened and steel matting had been laid. The whole job took the engineers a day and a half. For the most part, we had vitiated Jap air power, but the arrival of P-61s was welcome to counteract night raiders. By July 4th, Saipan fell, opening the way for rapid advance to the island's northeastern tip. This first important Jap city to be occupied by U.S. forces was Saipan's capital and administrative center for the Marianas, home of most of its 20,000 civilians. Thousands of civilians with their children streamed through a designated safety zone to the comparative luxury of internment camps, where they were treated as prisoners of war and given medical aid, food, and clothing. On the night of June 25th, a small body of Jap snipers crept through our lines and caused considerable damage to the parked planes before being killed. Concealed by cane fields that bordered the airstrip, the Japs had attacked and damaged planes with hand grenades and bayonets. Bulldozers and Tommy gunners cleaned out the cane fields, and by July 9th, the last remnants of Jap resistance on the island had ended. The conquest of Saipan had been the costliest since Tarawa, but it was one of the most significant victories in the Pacific. LCTs returned to Corsica with wounded and prisoners from Elba. The historic little isle, 20 miles off Italy's west coast, had been invaded on June 17th by French troops. The enemy garrison surrendered after 2.5 days of determined resistance. Large quantities of materiel and about 1,800 German and Italian prisoners were taken. Native stretcher bearers bring their litters onto the piers as the ships dock. Guards are French African troops. The French colonial army also used shock and commando troops for the invasion. All were transported by British and American ships, augmented by French craft. The more seriously wounded are conveyed immediately by ambulance to hospitals. A British YMCA worker has a cigarette ready for each man. The casualties are carried to a covered pier, which is used as a dressing station. When the effects of the voyage have been noted, wounds examined and treated, the men are loaded in ambulances and removed to hospitals. Included in the spoils taken at Elba were 2 German flak ships. Apparently built as LCTs in anticipation of an invasion of England, boats of this type have since been used in a variety of duties and areas. They have shuttled between the Channel and Mediterranean by means of French canals and short overland hauls, apparently to supplement anti-aircraft defense or general firepower of coastal regions. Although seaworthy, They are especially effective in port areas or sheltered waters because they are relatively stable gun platforms, and for their size, they are extremely heavily armed. Average length of these boats is from 140 feet, like this one, to 154 feet. Beam, about 20 feet. Speed, about 12 knots. This ship carries two 38mm flak guns, one 3-inch gun, and one 40mm gun. The shield of this 38mm gun, mounted near the stern, was pierced by shrapnel. In addition, there's an unidentified type weapon believed to be a rocket launcher. Two of these guns were found on deck between the 3-inch piece and the flak guns. The 3-inch gun is just forward of the bridge. Other flak ships have been found armed with two 88mm cannon in place of the 3-incher. Steel plating around the gun pit is concrete filled. The same kind of reinforcement shields the other guns too, 4 to 6 inches of concrete being sandwiched between the steel plates. The second ship, apparently a variation of the other model, was sunk by the enemy. The British Navy had captured it as it fired on the Allied landing party near Marina de Campo. Note the V superimposed over the swastika on the gun pit. Later, the British used this vessel against the enemy, before they in turn shelled it, killing 32 and wounding 15 British seamen. On this flak boat, the 3-inch gun is a different type than on the other ship, and a 40mm gun is mounted in the stern in place of a 38mm piece. An ammunition dump near Carentan goes up in flames. Set off by one tremendous explosion, the dump began to burn at 1630 hours on July 12th. It is believed that faulty ammunition caused the blast, but possible sabotage is being investigated. Delayed action bombs may have started the Holocaust. Endangered by constant explosions, men on foot and in half-tracks fight the fire. While shells explode about them, some GIs move ammunition out of the fire zone, while others attack the blaze according to organized direction. Hard work kept the flames from spreading to other ammunition stores. Target, Roland. During a week in which the chief target was Germany's oil industry, B-17 strike at Roland's refineries on June 21st. This city harbors one of the main producing centers of synthetic oil. On the same day, other refineries at Osterborn and Bremen were being damaged extensively, and more than 1,100 heavy bombers escorted by more than 1,200 fighters were hitting Berlin in what is reported to have caused more damage than any other daylight attack. After an effective attack, the Roland bombers flew on to bases in Russia. Target, Drohobych, Poland. From their bases in Russia, the forts taxi past an old Russian biplane as on July 6th, they start their return flight to England via Italy. En route, they fly at 19,000 feet toward the shuttle target, which is Drohobych in Poland. At Drohobych, the bombs fall on large oil refineries. The principal target, a synthetic oil plant, is totally destroyed. Bomb bursts may be seen through heavy smoke at the bottom of the screen. The bombers continue on to Italy to end the second leg of the unique large-scale shuttle operation. Target, Béziers. To complete the triple play, the B-17 set out for their home base in England and en route attacked targets in France. They pass over Corsica on their flight from Italy. In southern France, railroad yards at Béziers are hit. They, together with other yards at Montpellier, feel the weight of 630 tons of bombs. Then, with their Mustang escort, the forts fly north to Great Britain, completing the first England to Russia to Italy to England shuttle begun on June 21st. Gun-sight aiming point cameras record fighter activity over Europe after D-Day. To tie up the enemy's lines of communication, trains, railroad marshalling yards, motor transport, and inland waterways in France are strong. Truck convoys are attacked and set afire. Tugs and barges are struck. Enemy aircraft are destroyed. Many freight cars parked on a siding are destroyed in several passes.